All right, guys, welcome to an episode of Entrepreneur Hour. I'm here with Tucker Max. We're on the east side of Austin, Texas, and we've got a lot of really cool stuff we want to talk about here today, specifically with Tucker, with your businesses and what you've been up to, and Kentucky guy here in Austin now, doing some really cool stuff. You've been on my radar, I guess. I don't know how you came on my radar. I had reached out with something when I was in Atlanta, and then we came here. I just realized, I was like, you know what, I remember something about you being here in Austin or something like that. So here we are. I want to talk to you a little bit about yourself first, kind of your story. We always like to talk about entrepreneur journeys, how people got started, what they're doing, not just where they are now, but kind of like that evolutionary process of where they are and how they got there. So kind of give us the 411 on you a little bit.
All right, so you want me to talk about like just the entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, absolutely.
Company?
Or life events that led to what you're doing.
Basically, I wrote a bunch of books. They did really well, sold millions of copies. I kind of invented their own literary genre.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't say that shit. The New York Times
did. Yeah.
And so anyway, so like once that episode of my life kind of was over, there was a movie made about like one of my books, all that kind of stuff. When that part was over, I spent a couple of years honestly kind of doing nothing.
Okay.
Like I invested in a bunch of companies, but I mostly just chilled and relaxed and sat on my money, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it wasn't crazy. It wasn't private plane money, but it was enough that I obviously didn't have to work, right?
Yeah.
And so then I was at this entrepreneurial dinner in New York, and this woman came up to me, and she's like, I know you've written a bunch of books or whatever, but like people have been asking me to write a book for 10 years. And she's like, I tried it. I hated the whole process. I don't like anything about writing a book.
Yeah.
But I need to get this out of my head. Like, how can I get this knowledge I have out of my head and into a book without having to sit down and do it?
Totally.
And so I looked at her. I was like, are you asking me how to write a book without writing it? And she's like, yeah, kind of. And so, of course, I went into snobby elitist writer mode, right? And I started like lecturing her about hard work and like kind of subtly shaming her and all the shit that snobby writers do. And so she stopped me and she's like, Tucker, this is an entrepreneur dinner. Are you an entrepreneur? I'm like, yeah, of course. And she's like, I don't think so. Because a real entrepreneur would help me solve my problem and not lecture me about hard work.
Put you on blast.
Right?
Wow.
I know. And I was like, at first I got pissed, but she was 100% right. Like I was totally being, not even being a prick. Like I was just not helping her with her problem. I was just telling her what she couldn't do. It was bullshit.
Yeah.
And so I became obsessed with this issue. How do I get a book out of somebody's head without them having to sit at a computer for a year? And then like 2 months later, it hit me. It was like, of course, people have been doing this for thousands of years. Jesus never wrote anything down. The apostles did, right? Socrates never wrote anything down. Plato did. Buddha never wrote anything down. You got on a list of all these amazing
That's a hell of a sales pitch.
Cultural figures. Well, that was my thing. I was like, well, if Jesus can do it, so can Melissa, right? That was her name, Melissa. Yeah. And so I called her up. I told her, I said, like, you remember like old school scribes? And she's like, yeah, of course. Like, and I'm like, okay, we're going to do that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to do everything except learn. I'm not going to learn anything about your subject because she had this weird like, pop-up retail or whatever. I'm like, I'm not going to ghostwrite this book. It's going to be your voice, your ideas, your knowledge. I'm going to interview you in a systematic way, get it out of your head. Structure the book. She's like, that's exactly what I want. And so we tried it. It ended up working really well. I honestly didn't think it was going to work, but it did. And so, and it was, this is how dumb I was. I did it. She paid me like 10 grand. I was like, I don't care, whatever, right? Like this is like either I get it done or I don't. It was kind of like a fun project. It was more like exercising the demon of a call out than it was even doing the work, right?
Yeah.
And when I was done, I was like, okay, that's cool, whatever.
Yeah.
And then she started referring people to me, and they're like, oh, can you do the same thing that you did for Melissa? How much is it? I'm like, what are you talking? I don't have a business. I can't. And so eventually, my buddy Zach and I kind of pushed some of them off to him, and then I did a different podcast talking about a whole separate thing, and somehow like the host was dyslexic, and we talked about what we were doing, and he's like, oh, what do you call this? And I'm like, call what? He's like, your company. I'm like, and jokingly, I was like, oh, we call it Book in a Box, because that was like about like when Dick in a Box came out, remember like that Saturday Night Live skit? And Zach and I have been joking, oh, this is like that except not a penis, right? It's like a company. And so anyway, so the next day I get an email from some dude, and the podcast wasn't out yet. And the guy's like, hey, I've been looking up this Book in a Box. I want to sign up. I can't find anything online. I'm like, who the hell are you? How do you know about this? He's like, oh, I'm the podcast producer for this podcast. And I was like, Zach, we might have something on our hands. He's like, well, no shit, dude. Like, I've already signed 2 or 3 people just from Melissa's recommendation. So we put up a landing page. We did like $200,000 of business off of that podcast and Melissa's referrals.
That one episode?
It was a big podcast. It was Lewis House's School of
Oh,
Greatness,
okay,
right?
okay.
So
Yeah.
it was, but
So
this is
massive exposure.
This is still like, it was early on in his podcast. It was still doing good, but this was like first 6 months a year of his podcast.
Yeah.
So it was a big podcast, but nonetheless, we signed, I don't know, 20, 30 clients, and then like it just kind of steamrolled from there. But I was such a dumbass, I didn't even realize that was a business at first. I was like, because I just didn't even think of it as like, because I was a writer, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't think of it that not everyone can do what I can do.
Yeah.
And which is usually ends up being the best business when it's something that's easy and obvious to you, but no one else can do it, and they're willing to pay
sometimes
you
you're
for
going kicking and screaming, like, I do not want to do this. Sounds like that was the case.
I kind of, like, once I got into it, I was super into it, but
Yeah.
I didn't, like, I just didn't perceive it as, like, a thing that I would be
Now,
doing.
was it because of the revenue model, or was it because like it wasn't a passion project for you? Like you didn't think that there's quantifiable, or it wasn't scalable, or
The honest answer is that I was just a dumbass. Like, I just didn't think it was a big business.
So I'm trying to make excuses for you
real.
that don't exist.
Right, no, it was just that once we got into it, I realized, okay, there's a huge market for this. And then we did have a lot of problems scaling, but early on I thought it would be easy. I was actually, that was a double dumbass. I thought it would be easy to scale this. It was super hard to scale.
I would think
It's really hard because it's high touch. Like what we do, we don't sell courses to people. This isn't do it yourself. We do it with them.
And that's the hard part, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about.
Services are crazy hard.
That's the thing.
Crazy.
And so that's what I was going to talk to you about, and I don't want to save that kind of a little bit for later on, but I think it's good to touch on now. How hard is it to be able to kind of encapsulate somebody's story and make it sound authentic and original to them?
So that's easy, actually.
Really?
That's actually really easy.
Okay.
It's way easier than you would think. It's sort of like you look at what a doctor does, you're like, oh my God, how do you do surgery and all this stuff? I mean, they train for it for a decade.
Yeah.
Then it's like it's not that hard for them, right?
Sure.
So it's the same thing with writing. Like, I mean, I can tell your story, his story, anyone's story. That as long as you have a story to tell, and almost everyone does.
Of course.
It's really not that hard. I've been doing it so long, right? So it's hard if you don't know how. That's the easy part. The hard part is the customer service aspect. That was the problem we had early on.
In what way?
Because our process was awesome. Like almost from the jump, we nailed a really good process. And you know, because I'm a good writer and I understand story structure and all that sort of stuff. And I really dove into the product. And I got the product within 6 months, really dialed it. The problem was someone coming in from the outside, they have no experience with writing. They have no understanding of what it takes to write a book. And so they don't understand any of that. So our process was amazing. The subjective experience of the person going through it early on was not very good because I was building the process essentially assuming you knew what I knew, which is total nonsense. Like
they would have
ridiculous.
no idea, yeah.
Right. So we weren't accounting for their emotional journey at all.
Right.
Now we do a really good job at that. But
Okay.
for the first year, we were awful.
Now, I imagine there's some discovery involved, too, with identifying that person, their avatar, who they are, what they're about, and stuff like that. And kind
Like our customers?
Right. So is it developing a certain path contingent upon that individual and their personality type? Or is it pretty much
It's sort of.
everybody falls in the same basket?
So the details of every book obviously are different,
Okay.
right? But the structure you use to build it
Is exact-
so again, we only work with nonfiction, right?
Right.
And prescriptive nonfiction,
Okay.
meaning like you're going to share information.
Yeah.
So like that makes it really easy to have sort of a clear template and clear set of steps. But I'll tell you, if you put 10 of our books in a row and read them all, they wouldn't feel formulaic at all.
Really?
No, because a good structure melts into the background, right? A good structure is only about helping the story and the information come out and shine.
Right.
And so you don't really notice. You only notice it if it screws up or if it's a bad structure.
Okay.
It's sort of like in sports. If you don't notice the ref, it means they did a really good job. Right?
Yeah. They say about offensive linemen, too.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Offensive linemen. You don't see them until they screw up.
Yeah, exactly.
Same thing with us.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about then, we live in a very different world now. I obviously don't tell you that. From what I've gathered and from what people have told me and they've said, like having a book now is like a business card in this day and age.
Yeah, for a lot of people.
Yeah. Have you found it to be true? And then kind of like talk about the need for people, public figures, entrepreneurs, everyday people, to have an actual book themselves.
So I I don't like the frame that a book is a business card. And the reason is because any schmo can go to Office Depot and buy a business card, right?
Yeah.
But you can't go to Office Depot and get a good book.
Yeah.
Right? A book is, for a book to work, for it to be effective, and it can do a lot of things for your career and for your business.
Yeah.
But it's got to be good. Meaning, like, there's got to be valuable knowledge and wisdom in there that other people actually want, and it's got to be shared in a way they can understand and use, right? If you write it used to be that just having a book at all, I think definitely 10 years ago, and 15, 20 years ago, if you had any book at all, it was like you automatically were at the top of your field or niche, right?
Yep.
Now, I don't think that's true anymore. I think a lot of people have books now, and so now what matters is your book good? Where is your book positioned, and is it good?
Okay.
And if you have it positioned properly, which means actually a narrow niche, not a wide one, which is a big thing we have to explain to authors and get them to. But if you have it positioned properly and it's really good, then a book is actually better than a business card. I like to think the best example is a book is more like a college degree than a business card.
I like that.
Right, because a college degree used to be a big symbol of credibility and authority, right?
Yeah.
But now everyone went to college, so it's like it's kind of just table stakes,
lost its luster,
Exactly. So and plus, like you could get into Harvard if your dad went to Harvard. You can be an idiot and get into Harvard, right? Like it doesn't necessarily mean anything, or whatever. UT, like there's a lot of ways to get into schools, and you can kind of squeak by and get a C average and all that stuff. No one knows if you actually know anything. They just know you went there and you paid your money, right?
Yeah.
With a book, you don't have to rely on UT's judgment or Harvard's judgment. You can just read it, and you can see, oh yeah, this person's smart. They know things I don't, or no, this is terrible. Why would I work with this person?
Yeah. I think it was Vivica von Rosen that actually said that we had a conversation. She said that it opened up so many doors for her to have a book. Because like speaking gigs and various things, like they won't even allow you to be considered to speak unless you have a book. So I guess that was why she used that metaphor, compared it to a business card. But I appreciate the clarification.
So the big things that we're talking about, people in business, entrepreneurs, executives, that type of person. The big thing a book unlocks for them is it kind of raises your credibility and authority and visibility. So it raises your credibility, visibility, authority. So it's a hook for media, right? Like media people are far more likely to engage you and to do stories on you.
Right.
Speaking it's a huge thing, because it's like it's one of those things where it's like it helps people understand why you should be on stage.
Exactly.
Right?
It's like your brochure of why you should be speaking at the event. Why they should pay you to come speak.
It is. It's very similar to that.
Yeah.
And then also it really helps for a lot of times for actually like lead gen or closing clients. Like a great example is when we started this company and we realized, oh shit, we knew how to start it and we did a great job, but we didn't know how to scale it because they're totally different skills.
Yeah, totally.
And when I realized that, first thing I did, where do you go? You go to Amazon, you go find the guy who wrote the woman who wrote the book on it.
Exactly.
And then you read the book, and I read 20 books on how to scale business, and almost all of them were garbage. One was amazing. It was called Double Double by this guy, Cameron Herold. And so
Cam, he's good. He's awesome. Friend of the podcast. Dude, I had him on, and it's like mind blowing.
He's the best.
I mean, it's just
Dude,
he's good.
And then so I ended up hiring him.
Really?
He was like my executive coach until we hired a CEO.
Sweet.
And he's still an advisor to the company.
That's
he owns
awesome.
a piece of the company now.
That's
so you think of it from his perspective.
I didn't even know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, Cameron's amazing. There's no possible way that guy could have advertised in a way that would have made me do it.
And he scaled a business that's damn near, I mean...
Three.
Well, I was thinking with Got Junk, 1-800 Got Junk.
1-800 Got Junk?
Because that was the business that I scaled. And we scaled to 7 figures, but he scaled like 100 million or something ridiculous. Like I can't even imagine what that was like.
It's a whole different game, man. 9 figures? Like
That's
he
nuts.
left when he got to 100,
I don't think people realize just how difficult that actually is to do.
Dude,
That's unbelievable.
It's mind-bendingly difficult. We went from...
And he's done it multiple times.
Dude, 3 times. College pro painters.
No, he's a savant, yeah.
I mean, like, he's incredible. Like, it's one of those people where it's like there's a million things that you don't even know are things until you start scaling a business.
Totally.
And Cameron will be like, oh, yeah, I've done that a bunch. Here's what you do. This. And I'm like, how the fuck do you know this?
Yeah.
Like, no, I just did it. I've done it before. That's why I know it now.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I'm listening. I'm watching Facebook Live. Say somebody in the audience is listening right now. And I've always kind of maybe thought that, it'd be cool to have a book, but talk to the person that maybe doesn't know if their idea is good enough to be in a book, or is that something you guys have to overcome where it's like, hey, I would like to, but I don't know if my story is good enough.
Yeah.
give us some examples of things that you found where somebody's like, it was like, wow, this thing blew up and it was totally unexpected. They didn't even realize they had a story to begin with.
Yeah. So we have a bunch of those.
I'm sure.
That's super common, is that we'll get authors who feel like they don't have enough for a book. What usually is going on there is some form of imposter syndrome, right? Because like if I'm on the phone, I'm talking to somebody who's been in their business for 20 years.
They know their stuff.
And they're really good at it, and they've helped hundreds or thousands of people. Of course they have. Don't be ridiculous. Of course they have a book in them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're like, oh, I don't know. Like, a lot of times the model they have in their head is like sort of the entertainer model of books, right? So they're like, oh, my book's no way it's going to be as big as Tim Ferriss's. Well, of course not. Like, Tim Ferriss writes books to make money.
Yeah.
Like, his job is selling books.
Yeah.
If you're like a financial planner, right?
Yeah.
Your job is not selling books. The book is a credential for you. It is an authority.
As a
tripwire. To get clients, right? A tripwire, however you want to frame it. It is a thing you use in your business.
That makes sense.
The book actually markets you.
That
you
makes
don't spend any time marketing the book. Right?
Okay, yeah, that
and
makes
so
a lot of
for
sense.
those people, it's about, once they have that frame, then all I have to do is really ask them simple questions. Do people pay you for your knowledge and wisdom?
Right.
Yes or no? If they don't, you probably don't have a book. If they do, you probably do. How many people come to you for help? What do they say after you share your knowledge and wisdom with them, right? Are they freaked out? Do they think it's amazing? Do they tell you should have a book? Do they want to be your client? Or do they just like say, that's stupid and leave? Right? If they don't like it, okay, maybe you don't have anything to say, right? But if they do, then you probably do. What we normally see is people who have been in their business or a business for more than a decade usually have multiple books in them. It's usually 2 or 3.
Really?
And then what they'll do is...
On the same topic?
No.
Okay.
Like very close, similar topics.
Niche down with it.
Right.
Okay.
And so they'll try and put them all together. And
Yeah,
that doesn't work.
That makes sense.
Let's do this one first, because this hits your core audience, and it's a really important problem for them, and you've got really specific knowledge that no one else has really shared in a book ever. That's like where we'll start, and then if that works really well for them, which it almost always does, then we'll do 2, 3 more. Like Cameron did that. He's done 3 books with us. Meetings Suck, which is just how to run a meeting, right? Which seems like, is that really a book? Yeah, actually, because how many people work in companies that have too many meetings, and meetings are awful?
Or they're not effective.
So he walks through everything, exactly how to run a meeting, how to do it effectively, how to schedule them, everything you need to know. It's not that long of a book, but it's incredibly effective, right?
Yeah.
And the other one's Vivid Vision, and then the next one coming out is Free PR. They're all specific skills that people in business come to him all the time asking him to solve, right?
Yeah. It's the same. Honestly, we just talked about this, I guess, a couple weeks ago when we were looking at the statistics as far as people that pod fade. People that run a podcast and then they just stop doing it. And truth be told, Apple hasn't updated the new and noteworthy section for 2 years. And there are people in new and noteworthy that have been there for 2 years, meaning they're getting mass visibility. And then they pod faded like 2 years ago. They probably don't even know. But the thing is, though, is that I think it's a similar paradigm. Because I think what happens is people go into it, they expect, hey, I'm going to write a book and get rich. Hey, I'm going to start a podcast, and sponsors are going to flock to me. Yeah. We have sponsors for our show, but that's not the main monetization strategy. That's not the main revenue channel for us. Right. It's how you then leverage that exposure, visibility, or authority or influence or whatever to generate whatever it is that your profit maximize. So it sounds like it's a very, very similar dichotomy with what you guys do. Almost the exact same thing.
It's almost exactly the same thing.
Yeah, but talk to me about some realistic expectations for someone, because they sign up for that service that you guys offer.
Right.
What should be some realistic expectations in terms of ROI, in terms of what they can get out of that? Should they have something in place they can sell immediately, have a revenue model already in mind, or is that something you guys help with?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We just wrote a huge piece about this for our blog. All right, so it's a huge part of our process is setting proper expectations.
Okay.
If we set the right
That's everything.
expectations, then everyone's super happy with what we do, because we do a great job. Right?
Exactly.
All right, so the first thing you got to understand is you're not going to sell millions of copies of your book, right?
Yeah.
Like almost no one sells millions. Even like Seth Godin, Tim Ferriss, Gary Vaynerchuk don't sell millions of copies.
Really?
Yeah, dude, I mean, like Tim's probably sold 4 or 5 million copies total of all of his books. He might be up to 6 million, right?
Wow.
Like I've sold 3 million copies of my books, and my books spent 5 consecutive years, every single week on the New York Times bestseller list.
Wow.
Right? And so like, and 3-4 million is a lot.
That's a lot.
But considering I think it was actually 6 years, parts of 6 years on the bestseller list, you would think it'd be even more.
Yeah, you would.
Books just don't sell that much. Like you sell 10,000 copies in a week, you can almost always get on the New York Times.
Due to the world we live in now, or due to just the general consumption?
It's never really been that way.
Really?
No, they just don't, like, not at the volume of things. Like, go down the list of podcast downloads. Like, 5,000 podcast downloads is like that's a blip on the radar, right? 5,000 book sales, you're going to be in the New York Times list, right? It's a huge difference, right? Anyway, so you got to look at sales as for a nonfiction book, 5,000 books sold in a year is awesome.
That's excellent.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Like, I mean, just you can look at the data distribution. Something like 200 books a year sell more than 100,000. Nonfiction books sell more than 100,000 copies.
Yeah.
And like less than 10 sell a million.
Yeah.
I think less than 5 actually for nonfiction.
Yeah.
And so it's just a crazy low number. So you've got to totally readjust expectations in terms of book sales. Also, you need to think like a lot of people get obsessed with bestseller lists. Not only are they totally bullshit, but they usually don't help you at all. Like, they don't really move.
So it's a total vanity
copies.
play.
It's 100% a vanity play. Like, most people are like, oh, I want, they want to feel special and important. They feel like being a bestseller is a validation of them and their career. It's bullshit. It just, especially because most people have very specialized knowledge that is really applicable to maybe 10,000 people, and that's it. Not to millions of people. And so it doesn't make any sense that your book would be a bestseller.
Yeah.
The other big one is like being a famous writer. So many, even if people aren't like, they don't explicitly say it, they just kind of have that fantasy of, oh yeah, like I'll be hanging out with Malcolm Gladwell. No, that's not going to happen. That's nonsense. Right? Like I'm a famous writer. I hang out with Malcolm Gladwell. Right? It's like that's not how it works. And so we've got to. It's essentially they have the professional writer model of books when they need to have the model of I'm a professional. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an executive. A book for me is a tool I use in my career.
Leverage.
The book is not the thing I'm working towards.
Exactly.
It's a thing I do that helps me, and the way I measure myself is my career and the things I accomplish in my field, not this weird thing that's over on the corner that writers. If you are a novelist, then all like selling books and being a bestseller and all that stuff's super important.
Yep.
If you're a novelist,
Exactly.
If you're an entrepreneur, it makes zero sense for you to measure yourself that way.
Okay, so then what does a good avatar look like for you guys then? Somebody that would consult and utilize your services.
So someone who, like I said, who has like knowledge and wisdom that's valuable to other people in their head.
Okay.
They want to write a book and they either don't have the time or the ability or the desire to sit at a computer and do it themselves. They want us essentially they want to be able to get on the phone with us and just download their stuff.
So it's not like entrepreneurs or athletes, like it's just
we have tons of athletes.
Anybody. So in that regard, you're very diverse then in terms of.
Yeah, I mean, we can work with our main avatar. So our main sort of avatar are people who have successful businesses. They make money. A book would help them in their business,
right.
But their time is very valuable.
Exactly.
And so it's not that they can't write a book. Really, it's more they kind of don't want to. And also, they're not good at. They might even be great writers, but they don't know how to structure a book. So what they're buying from us is a reduction of, let's say, 1,000 hours it would take you on your own down to 100 hours when you work with us or less. So they're buying a 90% reduction in time, which is worth 10x what they pay us. And then also they're buying our expertise.
Okay.
Because a lot of people, especially when you've reached a certain level of professionalism.
Yeah.
A book is actually a risk for you. If it's not good, it'll make you look bad.
Yeah.
So you've got to make sure it's as good as you
want. Yeah, because we talk about the benefits, but the
downside is
adverse.
If you do a really crappy book, then like people look at like they will judge you based on your book cover, right?
Wow.
And so you work with us, everything's going to be dialed in. The book cover is going to be amazing. Like, we're not going to let it go, like, let the book out if it's bad, things like that. Like, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked a lot about there's like a formulaic structure then to what you guys utilize. What have you seen, if anything, where there's some kind of patterns that you've seen that indicate this is going to be a success? Like, I'm trying to figure out what's the difference, if there is one, that you can decipher between a book that succeeds, again, through the lens of whatever success you deem, versus one that just collects dust and doesn't do anything for anybody.
So what you're really asking is another big question people come is like, how do I know anyone's going to care about my book, right?
Okay.
Like, meaning, like, is it going to actually have an impact for me? And so it kind of gets back to what we were talking about. We kind of run people through a series of 3 questions, right? What are you trying to accomplish is the first thing, right? So let's just take a good example. Let's say their main goal is they want to start keynoting tech conferences, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. If that's your goal, books are really going to help you.
Yep.
So the next question, once you know, and most people have 2 or 3 goals, but let's say that's their main one.
Okay.
The next question you have to ask is who do you need to reach to accomplish that goal?
Okay.
Right? So to keynote a tech conference, there's 2 audiences. There are the people who go to those tech conferences and the people who book speakers for those tech conferences.
Yeah.
And they overlap a little bit, but they're different audiences, right? Those are the 2 main audiences, and that's it. Then the third question you have to ask is, what do I know that would be interesting and valuable to those audiences?
So there's a lot of strategic planning on your behalf in terms of guiding them in the right direction to provide something that their target, whatever, is going to be looking for.
Oh, dude, 100%. Like,
so that makes sense then.
A lot of, like, we'll get people. This doctor came in one time, and he wanted to write a book about how surgery was a metaphor for life. And we're like, no one cares. This is like, it might be
unless you're observing.
It might be super interesting, but no one cares, right?
Yeah.
And eventually, we helped him understand. He wanted to write this book to bring surgeons into his practice as clients. He has a surgical career consulting practice, right? Because they don't teach surgeons or doctors anything about how to run their career in med school.
Yeah.
And so he had done all the doctor for whatever 20, 30 years. He really kind of knew how to run his career. And so eventually he told us this. Well, yeah, they don't teach us anything about this. Like, why don't you write that book that explains to surgeons how you run your career? And he's like, yeah, but then, like, that's everything I teach, or I teach my consulting. Like, why would someone hire me? Because everyone thinks their problem is different, and because they're going to want you on retainer, and they're going to want to call you for those 5 or 10% of things that can't be covered in a book.
Exactly.
That's worth $10,000 a month to them, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah. So he wrote the book, basically the career guide for surgeons. No one had ever written this book, and since then it's done well. It sold like 2,000 copies, which for that niche is really good.
Yeah, that's a pretty niche down.
More importantly, he's made hundreds of thousands, at this point probably millions of dollars, because he's now like the grandfather of like surgical careers.
Yeah.
Because it's the only book out there.
Yeah.
And so like he started off thinking, I've got to write a book for everybody. It's like, no, you've got to write the book for surgeons.
Yeah.
And that's the way most people should look at it. What is the book I could write that would be category defining or niche defining for a group of people that I already serve in my business, right? Even if it's a really niche down version of that, of who you serve,
it makes sense.
That's going to serve you the most, and it's going to actually serve people, right? Because chances are, you think there's tons of books out there, and there aren't. I think last year there were about 500,000 books published in English, but most of them are garbage, and most of them don't actually help people with real problems. And so, like, that's what we try to get our authors to do, is focus on that.
Yeah, it makes sense. Now, how much, because I'm seeing, obviously our audience here can't see, and the people listening to the podcast can't see, but I'm seeing you've got your email sequence flow and stuff like that going on here on a whiteboard. How much of the marketing side are you guys involved with in that regard? Any at all, or do you just give them advice, or is that pretty much for your own personal use?
Yeah, so that sequence is our own personal one, but we started off only doing the book, and then we realized, oh, of course, like, that's not going to work, because no one wants just the book. They want when a book gets them. Okay. It's everything I'm talking about.
So it is literally the all-in-one book in a box.
Yeah. So what we started offering some help with extended marketing, things like that. Like we still have it in beta, but we have a speaking sort of version now where people finish with their book. We then help them write their speech. We help them practice it. Then we do their sales one sheet, a sizzle reel, and we start booking them for like free speeches, until we try to get them to where they're making about $5 or $10 per speech, and then they can go to a speaker bureau, right? And then start doing it. So we've got about 15 people going through that right now, which works really, really well, because right now that's totally underserved. Like, no one's doing that in the market, basically.
Yeah.
There's either speaker bureaus, or there are people who tell you what to do, but no one's actually walking you through the process, like, and doing the speech for you, helping. Like, it's all. Everything we do is high ticket, done for you or done with you.
Right.
No, we don't sell information. We don't do any of that shit.
Well, let's talk about some key differentiators, because as you're describing this, I'm kind of wondering in my mind, like, what's the difference between going with somebody like you guys with Book in a Box versus someone else just as a ghostwriter?
Right.
Like, what's the key distinguishing things you guys are going to do that's inherently different?
So there's two big things. Philosophically, we see ourselves as different from ghostwriting. Ghostwriting is where
you said there was a distinction. I was curious.
Yeah, so ghostwriting is where you pay someone to write a book and then you put your name on it. Right? And so it may be a lot of what you think. The ghostwriter may just go off and write their own book and whatever, right? That's one major thing. The other major thing, I guess there's three major things. The second major thing is that when you hire us, you hire a company. When you hire a ghostwriter, you're shit out of luck if they stink or you don't fit with them or whatever. You're kind of stuck with who you hired. With us, we have an entire publishing team that works with each author, and if any piece of that publishing team isn't working, it's no problem.
So
we
you
swap
can,
them out.
Yeah,
that's easy. We do that all the time.
That makes
no
sense.
problem.
That makes sense.
And then the other big part is with the ghostwriter, you're just working on the manuscript. Like their job is to take you from idea to finished manuscript. We take you all the way through published book, published and distributed book. Like
so they write it, and then you're on your own.
Right, exactly.
You're on your own. And do they normally just write whatever the hell you want them to write, or is it?
It totally depends on the writer and the deal.
Okay.
I mean, there's no. That's the thing about ghostwriting is it's a very opaque market.
Okay.
Like there's no standard way to do it.
Okay.
We're basically coming into a market that is opaque, has no price transparency, has no sort of process, and we are layering on a process and transparency to that market.
So is this kind of an animal in and of itself? Like it's not. So you're not a ghostwriting. You're not a ghostwriter or ghostwriting company.
We're close enough that you could think of us as the same.
Still kind of falls in that bucket.
Right,
Okay.
Right. Ghostwriting is definitely an alternative to what we do.
Okay.
We're different. We're different in ways we think are really important. Most people will be like, it's close enough for me.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about future plans, things you guys are working on. You said there's something you guys just launched, I guess, recently in the last couple of weweeks. Tell us about that.
So our main sort of offering is $25,000, which actually is going up to $30,000 in June. But so it's pretty expensive. It's like price of a cheap BMW, right? Not everybody can afford that. We got a lot of people who they want accountability, they want help, they want guidance, they want a structure, but they actually either they can't afford that or they do want their fingers on the keyboard, and they do want to spend months at a computer. They just need structure. And so we launched our book coaching product this week. It's $5,000. And the way it works is it's basically a 2-day workshop. You come to Austin, we walk you through the positioning and the outline, which are the hardest parts. You do those in room with us, with our editorial team. It's like maybe 10, 20 people at once. And so you get feedback. We explain how to do it. You do it yourself. You get feedback. We get them all locked in. Then we build your writing plan, your accountability plan. We put that literally on your calendar. You put it on your calendar in the room. We put it on ours in the room. And then you go home, you do the writing yourself, and you have a whole writing course, and then a publishing course, and a marketing course.
So it's involved.
Walk you through the entire thing.
It's
an amazing deal. It is. I wouldn't even say it's the best thing on the market.
Dude, you land one speaking gig, and it pays for. I mean, that's.
No, it's amazing.
Yeah.
The way we look at this as a long-term play is we want to put everyone who's just selling information out of business, because we're selling the best in class information, except we're not selling the information. The information is a lead gen to sell the services.
Correct.
And so no one who's selling information can compete with us, even if they have good information.
And I would think some people would maybe balk at the initial price tag of having you guys do everything. So it seems like that's a good place to be to kind of figure out exactly. Does this work, to convince them that, hey, this is viable. This can work for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sweet. We always end with this: resources you recommend. Let's say somebody's, hey, I want to get started. I'm rocking and rolling. What are the kind of steps you recommend they start going through to get positioned to do that?
The first thing I would do is actually read it. Let's say you can't afford either of our services, no problem.
Yeah.
We wrote a book that outlines our exact process, and it's not like a bullshit upsell book. It's literally our process, right? Yeah. And so it's you can get it for free. It's on Amazon. It's $8, or you can go to bookinabox.com/book.
Yep.
Or /freebook.
Okay.
And you can get it for free. Just download it. And it is the exact process we use. Because like I say, the reason you're paying us is our time and our expertise.
Totally. Yep.
It's not, the information is free. If you want to invest your time, great, no problem.
Exactly.
I would start there for almost anybody. Or look at our blog. We got great stuff on our blog about the fears that stop people from writing books, the ways to monetize your book. Those are great pieces, like the 18 ways you can monetize your book with all these examples that authors of ours have used. So you can, I can do this, I can do this. You can mix and match. All of that stuff is on there.
Sweet.
It's a great way to kind of start thinking about books in the proper sense.
Cool, man. And if people want to learn more about you, where can they find you on the web? Bookinabox.com, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Bookinabox.com. Anyways, man, I appreciate it. I got to tell you, I'm a bit envious. I always talk to people that have like really cool names of mine, so like so generic, just like Chris Harris.
Yeah, right.
And I hear your name Tucker Max. I'm like, that just sounds like a best-selling author's name. Like,
everyone
dude, you
says
got
that. No,
so
it's my real
lucky
name
with
now.
that.
Dude,
I was wondering if it was your real name. Or you
Dude, I got a better one. I was speaking at a martial arts business convention last weekend, Michael Perella's thing, and there was a dude who came up to me, and his name was like Ninja something. I can't remember his last name. And of course, I'm like, obviously that's not your name.
Yeah.
You're a martial arts trainer. He goes, no, I swear to God,
that's his name.
This is what my parents named me. I'm like, well, of course, then you have to be like a martial arts
Of course,
guy.
you have
What else?
to.
You can't be a chef.
You know the other one that I'm sure you do know because it's local here, but Tito's.
Oh yeah, of course. His name's Tito Beverage.
His last name is Beverage, and they sell alcohol. Like,
I know that was one of those where I was like, "Are you sure you didn't change your name?" He's like, "No, dude."
But it's not spelled. It's not spelled for those listening. It's not spelled like in the normal. It's like Beve and then like ridge, like a hill ridge or something.
Right. But it's still. You
but
pronounce
still,
it the same. Tito Beverage. Of course, he has to make out vodka. What else
he
can
has
he say?
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has to. Missed opportunity if he didn't. Anyways, dude. Well, thanks for taking time to join us here today. Thanks everybody for following us on Facebook Live or YouTube or whatever platform you're listening from. The podcast, obviously, we love you too. Anyways, we will catch you guys on the next one. Thank you so much.